I worked overnight security for a storage facility just outside town. It wasn't dangerous work, mostly boredom. The place had over 400 units spread across long rows of metal buildings. My shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. No customers were allowed inside after 9. Most nights followed the same pattern. Sit in the office, watch the cameras, do patrols every hour. Motion alerts were common. Cats, wind, sometimes someone forgetting a locker latch. That night started normal. Around 2:40 a.m., one of the interior alerts went off, Unit 317. That caught my attention because that section rarely triggered anything. It was near the back fence, no road access. I pulled up the live camera feed. The door was partially open. Not wide, just enough to notice. I zoomed in. No movement inside. The lights in that row were on like they always were at night. I logged the alert and grabbed my keys. The walk took about 3 minutes. The air was cold, dead quiet. When I reached the unit, the door was exactly how the camera showed it, unlocked, no visible damage. I slid it open the rest of the way and stepped inside. Empty. No boxes disturbed, no signs of forced entry. I closed the door, locked it, and checked the latch twice. Then I wrote it up as door unsecured. That should have been the end of it. Back in the office, I sat down and pulled the footage. Standard procedure whenever a unit was found open. The recording showed the door already cracked when the alert triggered. Then the camera caught me walking into frame. Everything looked normal, until I noticed the timestamp. According to the footage, I'd already been at Unit 317 earlier that night, around 1:12. I rewound it. There I was, walking up to the unit, opening the door. But instead of going inside, I just stood there, holding the door open. I didn't move, didn't look around, didn't step in. I stood like that for over 2 minutes. Then I closed the door and walked out of frame. I don't remember that at all. I checked my patrol log. There was no entry for 112. I assumed I'd just forgotten. Night shifts blur together. Still, it bothered me. At 3:18 a.m., the same unit triggered another alert. I froze for a second before pulling up the feed. The door was open again, wider this time. I stared at the screen longer than I should have, waiting for movement. Nothing. I went back out. Same result. Empty unit, no damage. This time when I closed the door, I stood there for a moment, just listening. Nothing but the hum of the lights. I locked it and left. When I reviewed the footage again, something felt off. The camera angle hadn't changed, the lighting hadn't changed, but during the second alert, the door opened from the inside. Slowly. No one entered frame. It just opened. I sat back in my chair and watched it a third time, then a fourth. There was a brief moment right before the door moved where the darkness inside the unit shifted, like someone adjusting their position. I didn't write that in the report. Around 4:30 a.m., I stopped getting alerts entirely. Too quiet. No wind, no animals. At 5:10 a.m., I did my final patrol. When I reached Unit 317, my stomach dropped. The door was open, fully. I didn't go inside this time. I stood outside and called my supervisor. He didn't sound surprised. He asked me one question. "Did you check the footage from earlier tonight?" I told him yes. There was a pause. Then he said, "Finish your shift. We'll handle it in the morning." I asked him if anyone else had access to that unit. Another pause. Then he said, "Just lock it and leave." I didn't argue. I closed the door, locked it, and walked away. I didn't look back. The next day I asked about it. Unit 317 had been empty for over a year. No renter, no stored items. I asked why it was still on the patrol route. My supervisor said the camera stayed there because it kept triggering alerts. Not motion alerts, door alerts. always late at night, always brief. I asked who checked them before me. He said most guards didn't last long on that route. Before I left the office that morning, I opened the footage one last time. The clip from 112, the one where I stood holding the door. I noticed something I hadn't before. Right before I let go, there was a shadow inside the unit. Not entering, not leaving, just standing close enough that I was holding the door open for both of us.
I stopped taking winter assignments after this. At the time, I was working seasonal maintenance for a state park. Trail checks, equipment inspections, mostly paperwork. Winter was quiet. No hikers, no campers. That was the point. Midweek, I was assigned to retrieve data from trail cameras, motion sensors, placed months earlier. The snow had come down hard the night before. Everything looked untouched. When I parked, I noticed something right away. My tire tracks were the only ones in the lot. That was normal. What wasn't normal was how silent it felt. No wind, no animals, nothing shifting in the trees. I followed the first trail slowly. The snow was deep but clean. No footprints, not even old ones. The camera was still there, mounted to a pine, battery intact, but it was tilted slightly to the left. Not broken, not loose, just adjusted. I straightened it without thinking and marked it on my clipboard. The second camera was deeper in, past a narrow bend where the trail dips. Again, no footprints. Mine were the first to mark the snow. That one was tilted too, same angle. I stopped longer that time, checked the straps. They were tight. Someone had moved it on purpose. I made a note and continued. By the third camera, the light was already fading. Winter days end fast. This one hadn't been moved, but the snow beneath it was compressed. Not footprints, just shallow depressions, wide, uneven, like weight had been shifted there. I didn't photograph it. I should have. Back at the truck, I loaded the footage onto my laptop. Routine procedure. The first two cameras showed nothing unusual. Empty trails, snow drifting through frame. The third camera took longer to load. When it did, I saw myself, walking into frame, stopping beneath the camera. I watched myself look around. Then I didn't move. The timestamp kept running. 6 minutes passed. I was completely still. I don't remember stopping. I skipped ahead. At the end of the clip, I stepped out of frame like nothing had happened. No jump, no glitch, just missing time. I replayed it slower. Halfway through the clip, the snow behind me changed. It didn't break. It compressed, slowly, as if something heavy shifted its weight. No clear shape, no legs, just pressure. I closed the laptop, drove back before dark. That night, I checked my step counter. There was a gap. 6 minutes. No movement recorded. The next morning, my supervisor asked why I'd stayed so long at camera 3, said the system flagged it. I told him I didn't know. He asked if anyone else was with me. I said no. He didn't press further. A week later, snowfall erased everything. When I went back to remove the cameras, the third one was gone. The strap was still there, cut clean through. No tracks leading away, just smooth snow, like nothing had ever stood there at all. I filed the report. They marked it as equipment loss, but in the footage archive, camera 3 still uploads, every winter, same angle, same empty trail. Sometimes, near the end of the clip, the snow compresses. I don't work winters anymore, but my ID still logs access attempts, always to that camera, always for 6 minutes.
I almost didn't mention it, because nothing actually happened. That's the problem. It was a normal weekday, late afternoon, still light out. I stopped at a small cafe near my apartment, the kind that's never busy, same faces every day. I ordered the same thing I always do, sat at the same table. A man asked if he could sit across from me. There were other empty tables, but I said yes without thinking. He didn't introduce himself, didn't smile either. He just sat down, folded his hands, and looked at me like we were mid-conversation. After a few seconds, he said, "You finally changed your route." I assumed he had the wrong person. I told him that. He nodded, like he'd expected that answer. "You stopped taking the alley last week," he said. "Smart." I laughed a little, not because it was funny, because it felt safer than asking. I asked if we knew each other. He said no. Then he asked if my building's elevator was still getting stuck between floors. I didn't answer that. I finished my drink faster than usual. When I stood up, he said, "You don't have to rush. You're early today." That was when I felt it. That sense you get when someone is speaking from a place they shouldn't have access to. I asked him what he meant. He shrugged. "Usually you get here closer to 6. Today it was 5:40. I told him to stop. He raised his hand slightly, not defensive, reassuring. "I won't follow you," he said. "I never do." That word stuck. Never. I left cash on the table and walked out. I didn't look back. I took the long way home, the busy streets. That night I checked my phone. No missed calls, no messages. But one of my alarms had been edited. The label was gone. Only the time remained, 5:40 p.m. I deleted it and tried to sleep. The next morning I saw him again. Different place, same distance, standing across the street, not watching me, watching the building behind me. I crossed without thinking. When I turned around, he was gone. I didn't see him again after that, but small things started changing. Doors I don't remember unlocking. Lights turned off when I was sure I left them on. Once my shoes were moved slightly, not enough to notice right away, just enough to doubt myself. Weeks passed. I convinced myself it was stress, until one evening I went back to the cafe. Different table this time. The barista looked confused when I ordered. She asked if I was meeting someone. I said no. She nodded toward the chair across from me. "He said you'd be late today, but that you'd come anyway." I asked who. She frowned. "The guy who always sits with you." I didn't sit down. I left. That night, my alarm went off early. No label, just a time, 5:40 p.m. I don't go to that cafe anymore. I don't take the same routes. I don't sit with my back to open rooms. And when someone looks at me like we're already mid-conversation, I leave. Because I still don't know how he knew my schedule, and I don't know why he stopped correcting it.